Hair. The Hebrews were fully alive to the importance of the hair as an element of personal beauty. Long hair was admired in the case of young men. In times of affliction, the hair was altogether cut off. Tearing the hair and letting it go disheveled were similar tokens of grief. The usual and favorite color of the hair was black. Pure white hair was deemed characteristic of the divine majesty. The chief beauty of the hair consisted in curls, whether of a natural or an artificial character. With regard to the mode of dressing the hair, we have no very precise information. The terms used are of a general character, as of Jezebel and of Judith, and in the New Testament. The arrangement of Samson's hair into 7 locks, or more properly braids, involves the practice of plaiting, which also was familiar to the Egyptians and Greeks. The locks were probably kept in their place by a fillet, as in Egypt. The Hebrews, like other nations of antiquity, anointed the hair profusely with ointments, which were generally compounded of various aromatic ingredients, more especially on occasions of festivity or hospitality. It appears to have been the custom of the Jews in our Savior's time to swear by the hair, much as the Egyptian women still swear by the side locks, and the men by their beards. So, does hair hold memories? Well, oftentimes when we are grieved, the last thing we think about is self-care. And in this neglect of self-care, we also tend to forego hair care, split ends and matted locks galore. And on the other hand, in times of mourning, women in particular have been known to instinctually cut their hair or to shave it off completely. You may have done this yourself or seen somebody else do this when they are going through a breakup or the loss of a loved one. And you may remember Britney Spears doing this. And who really knows what was behind her act, but we remember she was going through a lot at that time. Hair has been a big deal to many ancient cultures, and it's a big deal to us today. And Black women in particular, we collectively spend upwards of $1 billion annually on our hair. Hair means a lot to us, and for some Black women, it is a symbol of self-hatred. But for others, it is our pride and joy. And let's face it, Black people do have the most unique hair. And it's not to say anything bad about the hair of others, because I'm not. But our hair is the most different. And that, of course, leaves us open to critique, envy, awe, and adoration concerning our crowns. In Songs of Solomon, Solomon's locks are described as being bushy and are compared to dates in some translations. And we can't forget Samson losing his power after that scallywag Delilah deceived him and cut his locks that he had been growing as a result of his Nazareth vow. This resulted in him losing his strength and being captured by the Philistines. But again, does hair really hold memory? Well, I searched for the answer, and then I remembered the fact that when one consumes illicit substances, this can be detected through the hair. And this is a valid way of testing for illicit substance usage. Testing.com states, once a substance is consumed, it enters the bloodstream and travels throughout the body. As a drug is broken down in the body, drugs and drug metabolites enter the core of the hair through the hair follicle, sweat glands, and oil glands on the scalp. Illicit substances and their metabolites remain in the hair as it grows, which occurs at a rate of about 1/2 inch each month. Some substance metabolites attach to melanin, the part of the hair follicle that gives hair its color. While substances use and misuse may not appear in the hair until 7 to 10 days after exposure, once it enters the hair, it remains for weeks, months, or even years. So, when we experience emotional trauma, our body does release metabolites as well. And there was a study done at a university in Switzerland, and a portion of this article I found says, a study by the Brain Research Institute at UZH reveals that early trauma leads to changes in blood metabolites. Similarly, in mice and humans, experiments with mice have shown that these potentially harmful effects on health are also passed to the next generation. The researchers have identified a biological mechanism by which traumatic experiences become embedded in germ cells. And just as an aside, if you're wondering why they use mice in their studies, apparently we share a lot of DNA with them. And I do think that's an important point to make. So there's that. But back to the question, does hair hold memory? I see all the connections leading to a likelihood that it does based on these studies. These bodily chemicals from emotional trauma enter the bloodstream, and blood is crucial in hair growth. And not to forget, the Book of Jubilees says the soul is in the blood. With all of that in mind, I can definitely agree that there is something spiritual about the hair. That hair does hold on to memory. I know some people are cautious about who they let do their hair for this very reason, believing that energies can transfer in this manner. Now, in the New Testament, it speaks of how a woman's hair is her glory and her covering. And the Hebrew word for glory, it speaks of a weapon, a heavy weapon, and a defense of battle. So essentially, that makes me think of hair as a weapon of warfare. And sometimes when we feel defeated, we lay down our weapons of warfare. We surrender. We grieve by releasing ourselves from the heavy armor, our hair.